start by first extending my feelings of sympathy with the incident that took place during the Carnival to the family Thomas, the young lady who, as reports have it, unfortunately was giving some substance to drink, I don't know, ecstasy. The media, I sure would clarify that situation, but Carnival is for all of us to enjoy and to enjoy it in a safe way. And thus far we were having a pretty safe Carnival with minor incidents, and this threw a kind of a cloud on that. The authorities would be investigating exactly what took place, and I would suffice by having their reports, which would be the official reports to that. But my feeling and that of the Council of Ministers goes out to the family. Last week, on Wednesday, I met with the Progress Committee, as did Honorable Prime Minister. And as you know, the Progress Committee quarterly reports on the progress of the plans of approach, and there are two remaining, which is the prison, the one for the prison and one for the police. And I'm pleased to report that indications out of those meetings would be that we would be getting a positive report, at least a more positive report, because we're not there yet. There's still a lot to be done, but at least the Progress Committee is of the feeling that things are happening and that St. Martin is serious with tackling the problems, and that is something good. Having said that, I must voice my disappointment when I saw a release after the Prime Minister met with the committee and issued a release. I was looking for it in the newspaper, and at first couldn't find it. And then I went back and looked again, and it was on page 8 with a picture and a caption under the picture. And I'm talking about print media. When that same report in the past reported, or that same committee reported in the past, it always hit front page when it was negative. So I'm a bit disappointed because, as I said also, and this is no blamage or attack on the press, as I said in previous press briefings, that combating crime and the situation that exists on the island is a responsibility of all of us, and we should not underestimate the role that the press play in this regard. So one would have expected a more prominent feature when things are looking up. I would like also to inform the public that St. Martin will be hosting the judicial four-party consultations known as the JVO meeting. This is a biannual meeting between the 4 ministers of justices. It was planned for Curacao to host these meetings, but due to their elections, etc., they asked St. Martin to host it, which we gladly accepted. And that would be at the beginning of June. So St. Martin will be hosting this meeting, and the 4 ministers of justices of the Netherlands, Curacao, Aruba, and St. Martin will be present to hold their biannual consultations. So far, my comments.
At this time, I'd like to invite to the podium Honorable Prime Minister of St. Martin, William Marlin.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcia. Good morning, members of the media, viewers and listeners at home, colleague, Minister Bosman. It's a pleasure to be here after several weeks And initially, I was not planning to make any opening statement, as the only thing that went on for the past couple of days has been our carnival, which is coming to a close today. I want to congratulate the committee for hosting another successful event. And I think standing on the sidelines this year, I was able to witness sort of a transformation of Carnival. For the past couple of years, those my age, a little older, a little younger, have been complaining and yearning for the days of the past. And just yesterday, I was telling someone, you know, we may sound, if we continue on this path, we may sound like someone complaining about the use of iPhones and social media and computers, and talk about the days that we used to, work on a manual typewriter and even an IBM Selectric writer, or go to the desk and answer a phone. These are things of the past which were good, which we enjoyed, but are no longer there and will never come back. So we can hope for Carnival the way it used to be, but I don't think it will return, no matter how much we may want to, no matter how much effort we would put into it, because we would, in essence, be in the minority. So I was happy to note as well that for the first time in so many years, we have seen a lot of young people in the troops. We have seen a lot of young people in the Juve. We have seen a lot of young people in the jump-ups leading up to the Carnival. But this year, we have also seen quite some young people taking part in Carnival, which means that it is a step in the right direction, in the sense that once they get the feel and the fever for it, they will remain there looking at their ages for probably 20, 30 years to come. It has also been, in terms of the length of the parade, it has been the longest one I have witnessed in many years. Standing on Front Street with Maisie Richardson and her family, and of course with my family, we were wondering, there were years that we said, my gosh, it's over. And this time we were wondering, when will it end? Not that we were hoping it would, but at a given moment, it became kind of long. What is also different is the makeup of the costumes. It is more plumes and feathers than ever before. Basically swimsuits, bikinis adorned with plumes and feathers and different colors. But it is what it is, and I want to congratulate the Carnival Development Foundation for hosting another successful event. We've seen, we believe there were quite some tourists who came out to enjoy the event, which is also a good indication. And I think it was Bobertui and Suzette Moses that came down with a group of travel agents from the Netherlands to expose them to Carnival and to promote Carnival in Europe, and in particular the Netherlands. I also want to join Minister Bosman in extending our heartfelt sympathy to the Thomas family with the loss of their daughter, granddaughter, niece. It is tragic indeed. It still remains a mystery, but from what we have been gathering and have been told, seemingly there was an overdose of ecstasy put in a drink. I'm speaking to another parent, run into a parent in Grand Marché on Saturday, I believe it was. Sometime I'm confused with the holidays, but 2 or 3 days ago. And they were also concerned and asked if, that government should speak out and the police should be on the lookout. The police should visit certain establishments, if need be, undercover to detect what is taking place, because they had a bizarre story of their young daughter who came home one night just a few days ago and was kind of staggering and not feeling well. And all she could recall is being offered a drink and then suddenly being rushed by 2 ladies, not rushed in terms of a physical attack, but rushed and approached and said something. And apparently while she was waiting them off, someone may have laced her drink with something. She left shortly after, was able to reach home safely, but was not feeling well the other day. And some other person who was working at the establishment seemingly reported getting home, or rather waking up, and was practically undressed and can't remember anything that happened the night before. So seemingly there is a move out there, and I, through the Minister of Justice, would like to call on the authorities, the police, to step up vigilance, and if need be, we have to post undercover, plainclothes officers in certain establishments to keep an eye on these things. The establishment is not the promoter, obviously, but people would use places where people would hang out and have a drink to kind of get people under the influence of this drug, and in so doing manipulate the minds of these people. Last week, over the course of the holidays, I confirmed my attendance to the One Belt, One Road conference, which is taking place on the 14th and 15th of May in Beijing, China. It is an initiative by the Chinese government to establish new economic and business routes throughout the world, bringing countries together. It is truly an honor for me to have been invited, and I've accepted the invitation. Over the weekend, or for the past days, my visa was being regulated, and my passport is returning to St. Martin today. So I'm looking forward to attending the conference, and I will share more with you, probably via press release, as I will outline some of the things, because I don't have the documentation in front of me, some of the topics that will be discussed and raised at the conference. There are some 31 countries, I think, that have confirmed their attendance to the conference so far. I've also read a report this morning. I know a reporter had asked me a question about it, and at the time I told him I did not know, about it. And I've read an article this morning about the warning system, whereby it was said that the decision was taken now over a year ago, but that the finance department had not released the funding for the payments to be made. So I will be looking into it, so no need to ask any additional questions. At least I cannot provide any answers today, but I will do some research and questioning to find out why the payment has not yet been made. As I said before, I was not planning to make any opening statement, so I guess this will be all for now. One other thing I wanted to raise was to extend my deepest condolences as well to the family of Jacobs, Arundel, what's the name is? Greg Arundel's sister, Lord. Carmen Jacobs, the family of Carmen Jacobs, a good friend for many years. I'm terrible with remembering names. She passed away at the hospital in Marigot. We extend our deepest sympathy and condolences to Greg Arundel and the rest of the family. And there have been so many people who have been passing on this past week and during the carnival, and many of them related to carnival as well as to the mother of Earl, Church York, and the rest of the York family. We extend our sympathies to her as well. And we were happy to see her sister, probably the eldest reveler and longest serving reveler, Mito Arundel, who came out and graced the carnival with her individual costume like she's done in every year before this, faithfully. Aishira also came out in paying tribute to her deceased grandmother and actually her mother who raised her, the Felicia Priest, Fela, who passed away and was laid to rest just before Carnival, and was for many, many years our flag woman. And closer to government and closer to home as well, on behalf of government and the entire Council of Ministers and all civil servants, I would like to extend our deepest sympathy to the family of Maria Bass, our tax inspector, who has succumbed to a long bout of illness. Maria has been in and out of office, and it's like whenever she had garnered enough strength, she would come out, put in some hours, and then sort of disappear again. But she, fought an enormous fight. She put up a strong battle, but eventually it caught up with her, and she has departed this world. And we pray for the family and extend our sympathies and hope, that they find comfort in the upcoming days, and may the souls of all these departed rest in eternal peace. And I've come now to the end of my opening statements, and if there's any questions, of course, I will gladly answer those.
Thank you, Prime Minister William Marlin, for your opening remarks. If you have just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing. We now go over to the question and answer session. Members of the press is reminded to limit your question to short, direct queries. The floor is now open for members of the media to ask questions. SMA News, Bibi Shaw, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marcia. Good morning, ministers. Minister Boseman, you mentioned the situation with the young lady that passed away during days after the Juve morning. Can you tell me if the hospital reported this incident and if the body has been confiscated for an autopsy? Because we are hearing it's an overdose of ecstasy, but how do we determine that? Just by a blood test, or can we just go further and see exactly how this young lady lost her life?
No, I cannot go into that, not because it's secret or whatever, it's just because I don't know. I guess we'll just have to await the official report on the incident. What I mentioned is basically what was coming out there. It was not based on an official report. So as soon as, I guess, if there was any need for that process, for an autopsy or confiscation of the body, etc., that the relevant authorities would make that known. So I would await information from the from the police in this case before I say anything else on it.
As per the lawyers, last week you spoke about how sad and how hypocritical it was that the lawyers chose to go on strike and that you were going to meet with other law firms to get picket lawyers from those law firms. How successful were you?
Okay, what I did first was to indeed go back over and check all of the, if there are any outstanding bills. I also sent out a request to the lawyers in question if they can inform me which firms have outstanding bills over what months and what were the amounts. I thus far received notification from 2 firms that a December bill of last year most probably was not paid. I'm checking that to see exactly what that situation is. I haven't gotten, with all the holidays in between, I haven't gotten any reports. But from the information that I have, it would indicate that January, February, and March bills were paid. And that a December bill, I started on the 4th after returning from holidays, 4th of January. That's no excuse. If bills from December were outstanding, they should be paid, and it would be during January. Strengthens more what I have been saying, because if a situation exists that from all of the law firms that are involved in the picket service, that 2 law firms are contesting a December bill while all the other bills are paid, then having, being a person that comes from the labor movement myself, I seriously see how that qualifies, produces motive to call a strike, by which court cases that are pending for the suspects in the criminal law process have been postponed. Suspects that have been arrested did not have the possibility to have a lawyer present. So it really affects the situation. And as far as the consultations are concerned, myself and the other law firms want to make sure that the situation is indeed, what is exactly the situation. And we remain at the stage where it is that up to now 2 firms are saying that a December bill was not paid. So we'll continue to see how we can move on in that particular situation.
Prime Minister Marlin, can you give us an update as to the Pearl of China project? I know the Minister of Finance visited China because of the hiccup that they have with the clause that is in the deed for the land. Can you tell us where we are and how soon this project will kick off?
BB, I would not be able to provide any update right now, as there are some issues that needs resolving. They're being resolved. As the last thing I know, that the excavation permit was signed off by the Minister of Vromi, meaning that the new owners of the property can begin with the excavation. As I reported several weeks ago, I think it was, that because of the higher height, the height of the building, the new building is higher than the previous building. In order to stay within the approved parameters, they would have to go down in order to get more floors than the previous building. So that we are hoping would kick off soon, the excavation of the area to prepare for the final permit. And with that, then, we hope to see the project kick off. So far, there are no indications that the project will not continue or is any kind of jeopardy.
Your questions. Andrew, the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning to the ministers. Prime Minister, the Integrity Chamber, now that Carnival is over, how are we continuing with that?
You know, if I would answer the question directly, I would almost ask which integrity chamber. But I know, I know the gist of the question. As I've reported also after my return, we are using the provisions of Chapter 7 of the Kingdom Law on Financial Supervision, which is also applicable to the protocol that was signed in May of 2015 between the Dutch government and between the Dutch minister and the St. Martin minister, Dennis Richardson, on behalf of both governments. That protocol has a provision similar to Chapter 7 of the Financial Supervision Law that says if there's a dispute between the parties, then they can make an appeal to the Council of State. For the past weeks, I've been sitting with advisors of the Legal Affairs Department with the SG and my legal advisor and some external advisors, and we have put together the position of St. Martin. It's expected that before the end of this week, that appeal will be submitted to the Council of State. So that has that's apart from the decision taken by the Kingdom government to send the instruction. So it is not dealing with the content of the instruction. It is actually moving a step, I don't know if you would say backward or a side step, where we are saying instead of appealing the content of the instruction, we are appealing on the dispute. There is a dispute between St. Martin and Holland, and rather than using the provisions of the protocol to handle the dispute, the Dutch government chose to go to the Kingdom government to issue an instruction to St. Martin. So one has to see it in the proper legal context and framework. An agreement has been signed, not between the Kingdom government and St. Martin. An agreement was signed between the Dutch government and St. Martin. And as I've stated before in press briefings, can you imagine if St. Martin and Curacao sign an agreement on whatever, and attempting to execute the agreement, let's say Curacao walks away, and then St. Martin goes to the Kingdom government to ask the Kingdom government to issue an instruction to St. Curacao because Curacao pick up their marbles and no longer want to play. So in that realm, that appeal has been initiated and will be submitted before the end of this week to the Kingdom Council of State.
You mentioned that some VKS officers you were looking to get VKS officers in the prison. How far are we on that?
Oh, that has been successful all through the holidays, and I forgot to thank Mr. Rogers and the VKS. They have been fully cooperating, and the prison has been boosted with the presence of VKS, and we will continue to work out how we can continue using the VKS to assist until we have more permanent situations in the prison. So that has gone very well. And I want to also thank my colleague, the Prime Minister, because as you know, the VKS rests under his responsibility, and he has been very cooperative from the initial requests for that. So that is going good. And again, it is like what I said, if we work together, no problem would be too big for us to resolve. Just we need to have some patience, and everything cannot be done in one day. But I think I'm very positive we are on the right track as we move forward.
Were there any provisions made to do some training for these VKS officers, or are they just assisting the guards that are there?
Yeah,
So-
in the more permanent structure, not only the VKS officers, but some of the guards that are there, as you would recall from previous reports, they did not have the opportunity to finish their training. And not because the training was not available, but because of the amount of guards that were on duty. If you only have 4 or 5 people working, you cannot take out 2 or 3 to send them to train. So that situation now, by boosting the amounts that would be there, then you would be able to set up a good schedule by which all of them would be able to get the necessary training that they deserve and need to be able to do the job.
Thank you, Andrew, for your questions. We now go over to our second round of questions. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marsha. Minister Boseman, of recent, I've been hearing that the Court of First Instance have been postponing a number of cases that especially that government has. The hearing has been held, but you have some departments or divisions, if you want to call them, have been waiting at least 8 to 9 months, some of them a year, to get a verdict. Do you know if there is some kind of shortage of judges, or if there's any reason? Do you have any information as to what really is taking place with the courthouse in rendering verdicts?
No, I have absolutely no idea. I'm hearing this now for the first. I can ask a question and look into it and get back to you on that, but I have no idea what that situation is all about.
I'll appreciate you getting back to me on that. Prime Minister Marlene, over the past months, if you want to say weeks, months, the government services have been really plagued by the internet hacking and not hacking, but the viruses and all of that. Civil servants not being able to do their jobs the way they ought to do it. Have you any new information as to how the investigation and the boosting of the security of this of the government internet?
Thank you, Bibi. One of the things that I've said in the last press briefing that I was here, if one does not have security measures in place, you know, it is what it is. You're open, you know, it's like you have this building and you have it wide open. You have no security, you have no locks on the door, so anybody can walk in. The government system was lacking in securities because of investments that had been postponed and decisions that were not taken. Things that had to be purchased several years ago were not purchased, I guess, sometimes for switching priorities or lack of funding. But government has taken the necessary decisions, and the servers have been ordered, firewalls have been ordered, so they are on their way. And once they get here, like I, paraphrased with somebody, you can have a brand new Mercedes parked up, but if you don't have any gasoline, it won't drive. So you may have a great system, but if it's lacking in the gasoline, which would be, the firewalls for protection, then you are left without. I've been told that once everything is in place, we won't experience the kind of things that we have experienced. It is just a few weeks ago that some felt some kind of indication by saying, you see, the Dutch Second Chamber was also hit by a ransomware. But on the flip side of it, within, I guess, a couple hours, if not 1 or 2 hours, they were back up and running because they were able to, go in there back up and reboot everything and get back online. Because we are lacking in our securities. We have not been able to function that way, but it is getting there. So we are looking forward to, you know, the days when all of this will be behind us. Also, I can say that the VoIP phone system, the voice over IP phone system, has been ordered. It is being programmed, and within a week or two, government will be able to use that system to communicate throughout the government apparatus with each other. One of the huge expenses on government's budget is, you know, a 5 million Gildaphone tab per year. And with now the installation of this system and investing in this, we would be able to cut back drastically on the cost of telephone communication within government.
My final question regarding IT and how government civil servants are being hindered. One of the things I heard is that certain programs you have to pay a licensing fee, and even though departments or department heads may indicate this to the finance department, they do not make the payments on time, and then there comes a penalty, and sometimes they pay the fee and not the penalty, and this is kind of holding up civil servants because they still can't get to use the programs and their applications they have to use to conduct their jobs. Do you have any knowledge on this?
There's so many things that need fixing in the operations of government. We have 7 ministries, but then we also have certain departments, certain agencies within government that provide a service for all of the ministries, while each ministry, let's say, still has their own budget. I would take, for instance, facility services for one, that provides a service to all the departments, all the ministries. But sometimes there's a disconnect between the Ministry of Education and facilities as it pertains to cleaning of public schools. Next time it would be for the provisioning of security guards for somewhere. So there is always some issue. We are battling with it, and you know, with the move to this building, we hope that with having key players closer to each other, that some of these problems will go away. But every day there is always, you know, some new discovery. We take decisions, for instance, to pay a bill, and it takes sometimes weeks, months, and in the case of the alarm system, the warning system, seemingly more than a year. Where the payment decision has disappeared, we do not know, but these are things that we have to overcome.
Thank you, Bibi, for your question. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Just one question for the Minister Bosman. Gun policy. I remember the former minister was working on one. Don't know how far that reached, but your position on a gun policy. Are you working on a new one, or are you going to continue the one that they have, that they had before? Just your thoughts.
No, there is a gun policy. Indeed, the previous minister completed that. It was adopted by the Council of Ministers, and it was promulgated in the official Gazette. Okay, so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. There is a gun policy, and we'll be adhering to that gun policy. What has been the case is that there, for some reason or the other, there has been a stagnation in processing the requests that came in. As the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned, sometimes things get stuck somewhere on the line, so we have to find out exactly where they're stuck, why they're stuck, and get them moving. And unfortunately, that's the process we are in now. So there is a gun policy. That gun policy would be lived up to. And now I'm looking into where those requests are and why they are taking so long to be processed. And within short, I think we would have that, not only the backlog worked away, but also how we move forward in future to make sure that it's more efficient. But you know, I'm not in favor of everybody walking around swinging a gun. That's just to add to it.